All right, today we're going to talk about Kevin McCarthy and his problems of becoming the next speaker. Also, I think an interesting subject will be why Republicans just love losing. Let's talk about it. Hello, everyone. This is Keith. Welcome to the Ghetto Sapien channel, your home of inner city intelligence. So, Kevin McCarthy, this is his third shot at it, and he struck out. Third election for House Speaker, and he's been thoroughly rejected by a growing number of Republicans. Each time they've had the election for House Speaker, more Republicans started voting for Scalia, Jim Jordan. Personally think Tom Massey of Kentucky would be a better choice. He's more towards the libertarian side, and I think he'd actually start shrinking the size of government. Because we need, like Rand Paul. We need people like that. Rand Paul, of course, is a senator, but I mean Thomas Massey, I think, does a good job. You need to keep an eye on him in the House. So the Republican establishment is trying to say that the Republican Party looks like they're in a disarray and that everything's a mess and they can't lead because they're having such a hard time electing a shill establishment guy to run the House of Representatives. I think it actually looks pretty good. I like seeing this chaos. Again, government is not supposed to act so fast. These decisions should take time. They should be they should be debated in public. When you see 200 people, say you got 200 Democrats, they're able to come to a decision within seconds. They never break ranks. They're always in lockstep. Versus the other side, where you get defectors, you get people debating. They don't. You hear that you see the decision making right in front of you. What looks more like a free republic versus a tyranny? And you got 200 people who can snap to attention and goose step within 10 seconds, or you have the other side where at least you have, even if it's a minority, you have a robust debate about the topics and a questioning of the written narrative. One looks way more like tyranny than the other in my eyes, at least, or at least I think to the eyes of any rational thinking person. So yeah, Kevin, I think he's going to get in eventually. McCarthy, the leadership is going to pull some sort of trick, some House law they're going to pull out their ass that's going to allow Kevin McCarthy to assume the seat, the House seat. Jeffries from the other side. There's no chance the Democrat is going to make it. You need some Republicans actually vote for him as House Speaker, and they're crazy. I don't think they're that crazy. So that's out of the question. Like I said, just to set your expectations, it's most likely going to be McCarthy. But I hope by the time they drag him across the finish line, he looks like Weekend at Bernie's, scarred, beaten up, bloodied. He needs his ass kicked pretty hard. So maybe he might do a couple of right things, like investigate. But enough of that. Let me bring up this video I saw on Fox News that just displays how the Republicans, at least the leadership, just constantly lose. They do not know how to wield power.
Just some of the debate on Capitol Hill yesterday as Republicans were unable to elect a Speaker of the House on 3 separate votes. Now, a total of 20 Republicans opting to not support Kevin McCarthy to become the next Speaker. Florida Congressman Byron Donalds withdrawing his support from McCarthy on the final vote of the day.
By the way, Byron Donalds is the one black guy there from Florida. That's another guy to look out for. Very fast on his feet. He's got control of the facts whenever he speaks. He goes on CNN and debates, even though I haven't seen him on CNN recently, probably because he's beating the ass a little too much, and it looks kind of bad to have a black man speaking out. He might inspire other black people to kind of think about the Democrat Party. So I haven't seen him on CNN for a bit, but look out for him again. Good guy.
Me now is Washington Examiner editor-in-chief Hugo Gurdon. Hugo, it's great to see you this morning. Thank you for being here with us. Your 1,000-foot view of where we are right now as we go into day two, waiting for a speaker to be elected. You know, Jim Jordan seems to be the other favorite, but he doesn't even want to do it.
And about Jim Jordan, also pretty good guy, even though I heard he's getting Google money, so don't know if he'd be the best speaker, but I think he'd still be better than Kevin McCarthy. Where I really think Jim Jordan needs to be is on these House select committees, the ones that are the oversight committees. I think that's where he does his best work. So, you know, as Speaker, he would not be able to serve on these committees. So I think Jordan's right. Pass on him as the next Speaker and just let him do his thing where he, leads these investigations.
Right. This was a terrible self-inflicted wound, Jackie. If the Republicans show that they can't govern themselves, voters are not going to believe that they can govern the country. And this was.
But see, this is what governing looks like. Again, it's not everyone walking in lockstep. You have 200 people, and they shouldn't be coming to decisions, quickly or without thought whatsoever. So I think this guy is wrong, but again, we're talking about why Republicans like to lose. This is one of them.
It was an absolute mess yesterday. The rebels got a lot of concessions before the vote was even taking place. They could have taken the win and walked away and shown the party to be unified, which is what's necessary for the Republicans to do for the next 2 years. And then right near the end of the day, McCarthy apparently made more concessions, and they made concessions which they had been demanding, and then they upped their demands. It looks as though there may be even sort of bad faith rebellion here, and that there may be an absolutely hard block of guys, of lawmakers who are not going to vote for McCarthy.
The problem
so I think
here,
McCarthy's candidacy is in trouble.
Yeah, the problem here, though, is that all of this fighting and the fight for the speakership is delaying all the work they have to do for the American people, right?
What work are they going to be able to do with a Democrat Senate and a Democrat presidency? Really, all they're going to be able to do is what they're really tasked to do. They're really, one of the responsibilities is oversight. That's all they can really do at this point, to bring as much information to the public and let the public digest it. So unlike in 2020, the public can at least go head to the polls in 2024 with better knowledge of what's going on with the corruption of government, corrupt government.
Potential GOP investigations, swearing in the new members would come first, but then the investigations, and possibly trying to legislate, right? The reason people voted in the midterms and the House turned is because people wanted to see some change. And yet you see them, if you were watching yesterday, it was fascinating to watch, sort of posturing back and forth.
Right. They're absolutely right. They cannot get on with the work that they were elected to do. One of the things that the messages of the midterm was that the voters want sensible, responsible government. And that's the Republicans have this task over the next 2 years to show that they are a responsible, reasonable alternative government to the Democrats. And they've started off on exactly the wrong foot.
Not really. I disagree. I agree that the Republicans, within their ability, have to show that they're responsible and that government can be trusted. I think that's the biggest thing. You are never going to get people to trust government again if there's no accountability. Right now, as close to something resembling accountability that the Republicans can produce would be an oversight committee that brings out evidence, sort of like no one complained with the January 6th trial garbage that went on for months and months and months. I think the Republicans need to do the same with Joe Biden and what's on Hunter's laptop. We have to have that. If there is no accountability, there's going to be no fidelity left for government or any of our major institutions, and that's going to be a massive problem.
There are investigations to do, and this is one of the things that the Republicans have put themselves in danger about. they have to show, in showing themselves responsible, they have to pick their fights. They have to investigate the collapse of the southern border. They have to investigate, the debacle in Afghanistan, the wasted money and the causes of COVID. They have to avoid things that make them look like partisan squabblers. They have to avoid investigation, for example, of Hunter Biden, who's
right there again. This is why Republicans lose, at least the leadership. This guy needs to be ignored. If they can't investigate Hunter's laptop, I'm not saying Hunter himself, because I think most of the things that are on Hunter's laptop, the biggest issues are things that point to Joe Biden being a corrupt president and someone that can be compromised by foreign entities. That's the most important thing about investigating Hunter's laptop, and that is exactly what the House Oversight Committee, run by the Republicans, said they're going to do. They said this is about Joe Biden, not so much about Hunter. And I don't see how there needs to be too much of an investigation anyway, how long it'll take. Almost everything that's indictable is on the laptop, and many of us have seen it already. So it shouldn't take up too much time to investigate the laptop and start looking at Joe Biden. They have the SARS, they have the from the banks, what does SARS stand for again? He has suspicious activity reports from, he has 150. Most people don't have one in their entire life. Hunter's bank transactions has triggered 150 SARS, suspicious activity reports from multiple banks. If we're going to ignore that, just give it up. If the Republicans can't get that out there and to the public, the SARS, then what's the sense of letting them govern at all? Some of the SARS, some of the suspicious activity reports shows that Hunter and Joe participated in sex trafficking because they could see the money going from the prostitute, to the organization that is involved with sex trafficking, and they could see the movement of money. It's pretty straightforward that Hunter and Joe funded sex trafficking. Or if that's not good enough, just go look at the border and see what's going on. The border policy is pretty much a rubber stamp on sex trafficking from the cartels in the South. So that's not too hard to dig into. This guy doesn't want the Republicans to do anything at all, really. He just is another go along, get along guy. Very irritating.
Already being investigated by the DOJ.
Right.
So they have to pick their battles and really show that they're responsible. He
just said that the Hunter Biden laptop is being already investigated by the DOJ. Oh yeah, that'd be like Bull Connor investigating racism in Alabama during his time, or was it Mississippi? That doesn't make any sense. This guy, I don't know if he knows what he's talking about or he's just putting words out there hoping that people just nod their head. But if you just dig just one layer deep, he's speaking nonsense.
And yet they start off in this way where, as I say, they can't govern themselves. So why would voters believe they can govern the country?
Yeah, that's a good point. Sticking to the core issues that people care about without making it look petty. Meantime, speaking of those GOP investigations, Karine Jean-Pierre, White House press secretary, this is what she had to say about it. Watch this.
House Republicans promised that fighting inflation during the midterms was going to be their #1 priority. But instead, what they're doing is wanting to do an investigation on the president and his family. That is their focus. They don't want to focus on the American people and their family. They want to focus on political division.
And that's your exact point.
Okay, so we'll ignore the fact that the Democrats have been doing that for 4 years. Well, actually, 6 years. 4 years while Trump was in office and 2 years after. So we're supposed to be okay with that. And Republicans are supposed to go and play nice with the Democrats again. And this is why I don't watch Fox News that much. They're pro-establishment. Give me independent news sources anytime.
Yeah, well, she makes the point that you can see here the White House and the Democrats are going to attack the Republicans
no matter what. Anyway, continue.
Whenever they see the possibility. It's of all of the absurd things that the Democrats do, perhaps the most absurd is to try and blame the Republicans for inflation. But if the Republicans give the Democrats in the White House a handle on this, if they go into a kind of what can seem like a vendetta investigation of, say, Hunter Biden or the 2020 election or trying just to defend President Trump, then they will be handing a weapon to the Democrats. Inflation.
They have ample weapons. They have the Department of Justice, where we saw they have the FBI, they have the media, they have morons like you. So there are no weapons left to hand the Democrats, to be honest.
Is, of course, the Democrats' fault. It's spending trillions and trillions of dollars. And one of the things to remember, Jackie...
Republicans spent trillions of dollars, too. They signed off on that crap. So both sides have dug us in a hole. So that's something I'll throw on at the feet of both parties.
Inflation is now still above 7%. It was above 7% before the Ukraine war. So the excuses that the Biden administration has made in the past, that these are Putin's price hikes, is absolute nonsense.
Yeah. Good point.
Hugo, hi, James Freeman at the Wall Street Journal. Wondering, we just played a soundbite with Matt Gaetz saying there's no difference between Nancy Pelosi and Kevin McCarthy. I don't know if he really believes that, but that's a position that would,
I believe it,
suggest not a lot of room for compromise, not a lot of desire to compromise and allow McCarthy to be Speaker. Do you think Gaetz represents just himself, half of those 20 holdouts, all of them? I'm trying to get a sense of who you think might be persuadable, how many in that group of 20 might be willing to come around.
Yeah, James, I'm concerned that, in fact, the McCarthy and his allies may not be able to reduce the number of holdouts to a sufficient level that he can actually win this. I expect that he will get some. He's already made some concessions, and he'll probably win over a few more, even though the number inched up to 20 rebels by the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that he can do it. I'm not sure that he can get there. And I would say I don't think Jim Jordan is a likely replacement, but there's been talk of Steve Scalise for a long time. And the pressure will build on McCarthy. If he can't win, the pressure will build on him to step down and allow someone like Scalise to stand.
And I think he should step down. But like I said, I don't think it's going to happen. This guy, he apparently thinks that there's room to negotiate with the Democrats if the Republicans just got behind McCarthy, and that they could do anything other than their constitutional duty of oversight. Look, anything the Democrats and Republicans can get together on and pass is going to be bad for the country, because the Republicans will just give it up and not put anything conservative, any bills that are passed, and the Democrats will just get whatever they want. So I'm good with the gridlock right now, and if all the Republicans can do is have committees and produce evidence about how corrupt the government is and how Biden and the crime family are doing, that's good enough for me for the next 2 years. In fact, I'd love them just to not, if that's the only thing they can do. You're not going to be able to negotiate anything with a guy that sounds like this.
Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. Okay, so that's the guy you're going to try and negotiate some bills with, that anything he'd sign is going to be against the Republicans, whatever the Republicans want anyway. So, like I said, I think the Republicans need to just concentrate on these investigations for the next 2 years. Just ignore the Democrats and the media. They'll be screaming no matter what happens. They're gonna be on the Republicans' ass, whether they investigate Joe Biden or not. So you might as well investigate Joe Biden. I don't see why not. But that's my take on this. What's yours? Like, share, comment, and subscribe.